Cool.
These little creatures, they were obviously tugging on your heartstrings as you were kind of
Mm.
creating them in the background before launch. I'm just curious, with some of the content, like the AI picks, some of the videos, stuff like that, the idea for the name, which is truly fantastic, which I always start to forget the acronym, good old fashioned unregistered securities. Um, how much of that was like, how much work did that take before launch? Because that's kind of the fun stuff. But did you just start creating a backlog of stuff with that before launching the token?
It was kind of just like make things as they're needed. The name Gophers for that, like with that acronym,
Hmm.
that I had like 6 months ago.
Yeah,
Um,
it's brilliant.
and like a more like kind of a more serious thing. The idea was like basically like an on-chain hedge fund that like very publicly just refuses to comply with SEC registration requirements of a normal hedge fund. So like kind of like it was meant to really kind of poke it at that more as a joke, kind of when the like Richard stuff started going on with the SEC. That was when that was kind of kind of and I think that now it's kind of more evolved into like a symbol of fun and also a reminder that the right to choose what you do on chain, that's a human right and no one should infringe upon it. And so just because somebody you know has a law enforcement arm related to them tell you that something you're doing is illegal because it's unregistered, that defies natural law, and that it's not part of how these gophers operate. So that was kind of the more fun part. And it's like, what, these things are gophers. It's a token backed by images of gophers that wear colored glasses and gold chains.
Yeah.
Kind of
It's awesome.
there's some symbolism, but I think it's more about just the fun of these little creatures and the personas that they've developed.
I saw one of them was already hanging out with John Cena by the looks of it, so that was very cool
Yeah.
as well. So this leads right into my next question here from Tech Dude. So what went into the decision to introduce them with really thick, that's double C thick, liquidity on both chains versus thin? Because a lot of people want to have that like chart that they can look back on with these like crazy parabolic gains, and one may argue like with thicker liquidity, maybe you can't see that. I think you've talked about this a little bit, but as you kind of get out there and people hear what was behind all this more, I think people want to know what kind of went into that decision, and why do you think it was the right way to go for them?
Yeah, so I think that in a lot of cases that when you see a coin that had just like a massive move, but then you look at actually how many people bought and sold, it's like the chart appears to be like it went up very much, but no one realized the gain. And so in some ways, I think it's kind of misleading to just kind of like it's almost like in some ways, I think it's almost lying to new buyers about like the true value of the thing. And
Mhm.
so the I guess the launch strategy of Gophers was more around establishing a thick price floor, because once the liquidity moves through that like initial tranche of liquidity that's down basically in between the launch price, and most of it was between launch price and 9x move, which is still a lot. Like in any other market, that's shocking.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
crypto maybe not. So that most of it is in that tranche, and then it extends up to about 20x. So like the thinking behind that is because it was deployed as a V3 pool, and so it started with a bunch of gophers, and then as price works its way up through that, now that with Pulse, and so now that Pulse that's sitting there, that's like a strong layer of just like demand that's just there, regardless of new buyers. There's just that baseline of demand liquidity pool that's there, and so that as like a kind of a launch, like a next wave that kind of just helps establish that like price floor. Because if you're a trader and you see that massive wall of liquidity, you may put your bid order slightly above it, and then people put theirs slightly above that. And so it can kind of provide a foundation for new buyers and traders to reference. And I think that with a lot of coin launches, there's a cohort of users who have way lower of a cost basis than another cohort of users, even if they got in at just like from one to the next. And so having that thick liquidity at the launch, like in that launch price range, that just helps people just get a better deal. Like, it kind of helps people. One, if you're a large buyer, you're not getting barely any slippage. Like I think that like $50,000 buy order is like less than 1% slippage, which 50,000 in any other coins is going to double the price.
Sure.
But with this, just allowing more, people who are actively involved in these first couple of weeks to get roughly, I mean, even though there is a dispersion, but most of the trading has happened between like 6 and like 7.5, maybe closer to like 4 to 7 if you include that last part of that range. And so most users are getting in at a pretty close price range. And I think that just creates a little bit less overhead from like, a handful of users that gobbled up the majority of the supply, who then are now active sellers for years on end. So it kind of that was part of it. I wanted more of the early adopters to get a good deal and then get roughly the same amount per dollar put in.
Nice. I think you're definitely accomplishing that. Yeah, it seems more fair that way, and we've seen people do that. Like even this retracement right here. I mean, what percent down are we really from the all-time high? I mean, you're really not,
probably maybe.
Yeah.
And I think it's because that went into, because GOFURS was included in the pool party airdrop. And so there was a lot of buying leading up to that. And so it basically, I think by now I'll have to look a little closer at the chart. I think that it has basically just given, at least on Pulse, it has given back the gains that were experienced from the time that the airdrop was announced to when the airdrop snapshot was taken.
That makes sense.
So there's basically back to where it was before that.
Pull it up on PulseChain here for you.
There you go. There's the daily, which is only about 9 days or something like that. But yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're about right. Yeah, since the announcement, it would make sense that it would kind of retrace back to there. So, yeah, but looking good. I mean, maybe we can consolidate here for a little while as well, which would make sense now that we have seen Pool Party come out.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is actually, like, if you click the red pulse, but like see at the top of the screen says USD/WPLS. I always chart in the WPLS one because that more accurately shows the buyers and the sellers of GOFURS. Because that USD chart includes basically the price of Pulse. And so
gotcha.
That's so you kind of took the elevator up and then the stairs down, which I like. I think it's probably better than taking the stairs up and the elevator down.
Yeah,
So